Hello, hello. We will be starting in about 6 minutes now. So while we are waiting, I created this. Yay! What's up? We will be starting very soon, about the next 5 minutes. Get comfortable. Do a quick bio break if you need to. And just also letting you know that in the last 15 minutes of our session today, our informational interview, we'll actually be doing a Q&A. So stick around if you would like to ask myself or our guest, who's a recruiting coordinator at Facebook, some questions. See you in a minute. Not sure. I think I might have been muted there for a second, but thank you all for joining us. Hopefully you can hear me now. Put in the chat that you can hear me. If you can hear me, comment yes. So I know that we are good to go. My name is Manny Duenas, aka the Career Doctor, and we have these career clinics once a month as of right now. So appreciate you for joining us. Today we are going to be digging into informational interviews, how to conduct one, and we will be doing one live actually with a recruiting coordinator from Facebook who is backstage actually right now waiting to come up. So just so you know, if you're not familiar with informational interviews and what those are exactly, informational interview is pretty much a conversation that you have with a professional in a field that you are interested in. I think that it's a great networking tool, especially for growing your network, meeting new people, and learning about a profession that you're interested in. So, if you're on LinkedIn and you find someone who is in a position or career that you're interested in, you're able to reach out to them, and try to have one of these informational interviews with them. So, career path that you maybe are interested in the future, you can reach out to people with that experience and connect. So that is pretty much what an informational interview is. So we're going to do a live one here today with Stephanie Guerra. So let me bring her on stage and we will get her up here to introduce herself. Give me 1 second while I bring her up stage.
Hi.
Hey there. Hey, Stephanie, how you doing?
Good, and you?
Doing good, doing great. Thank you for joining us. Everyone, please meet Stephanie Guerra. Just really quick, because Stephanie's big time now working at Facebook, so maybe she's forgotten a little bit about me. But Stephanie was actually a trainee in the Year Up program, and so she's now an alumni of that program, now working at Facebook. But before I delve too much into her background, I'm going to let her do the talking. So, Stephanie, if you can tell us a little bit more about you, your career path, what led you to the role that you're in today, that would be amazing.
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons why I'm here today is because of Europe. So I got the privilege to be part of this program called Europe, and where I met Manny. And this program basically taught me the basic skills to what I needed to be responsible and communicative and everything you need to know to go to a workplace. And then, through them, I got an externship at Facebook, which then led to a conversion, which just means that now I'm officially part of the team, not as an extern, but more of as an employee. And I've been with them for over a year now. And so it's exciting and great to be part of that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your background. Stephanie, I feel like I need to give you a little bit more credit because, being in that program, it was a year long. So a lot of people, quit their jobs to attend this program, and it's a huge commitment, and you spend the first 5 months in a learning and development phase where you're picking up, business communication skills, public speaking, and project management, which was your track while you were at Year Up. So I just wanted to point that out to everyone who is in the audience right now, that it's a year-long program, so huge commitment, and it's a huge accomplishment to earn that externship and to graduate the program and be converted, because it's not easy. There's a lot of challenges and obstacles and roadblocks that our trainees and alumni experience along the way, especially with the pandemic going on, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure on the trainees. So kudos to you for graduating the program. If you are in the audience right now, I just want to reset a little bit and let you know that we're doing a live informational interview So pretty much the questions that I'm going to be asking are questions that maybe at some point when you conduct one can be similar to the questions that you ask, right? So this can just give you an idea of what an informational interview is, the questions that you can ask to get, the answers that you're looking for in terms of a specific career or field. So the career field that we're looking at today is recruiting. And Stephanie Guetta is a recruiting coordinator. So if you are watching right now, please leave a comment in the chat. Let us know where you are tuning in from. Would love to see, the different locations where everyone is viewing from today. All right, everyone. So without further ado, let's jump in a little bit more into this informational interview. So, Stephanie, can you tell us a little bit more of why you decided to join the Year Up program?
Well, I think I actually didn't want to join Europe. I know that like every time we've talked about this, I always say like I was super skeptical about the program. I wasn't sure. I mean, Europe offers you a stipend for doing this, and it's completely free. And it was weird. But at the time, I didn't have anything. I had lost my job. Um, I didn't know what path I was going to take in my life. And I was really confused as to where I was headed. And then somebody mentioned to me about Europe. And I was like, okay, well, let's sign up just because. And I remember that my cousin told me, you have nothing to lose, so why not do it? And so I did. I joined, and I went to the first intro that they do. And I was like, wait, this is not real. Like, who does this? And it was just very like mind blowing, I think, for me that this was an option. And yeah, it was a process. You have to interview for this, and you have to fill out an application. You have to hopefully do the best you can so that they accept you. And I was privileged enough out of 40 students to be accepted. And so it was great. I got in, and I remember I was so like conservative. I didn't talk to nobody. I didn't want to be seen like a person that was social, or I didn't want to interact with nobody. And by the end of the first week, I was like friends with everybody, and we were mingling and talking. And I think, it led me to great opportunities. But at the beginning, I was like, I don't want to join. And once I did, I was like, okay, this is now what I'm doing.
So I know. So at our particular site, which is partnered with Facebook, hence why you're sitting at Facebook now. When you got into the learning and development first 5 months of the program, there were two options, two paths to go down, right? One was IT, and the other one was project management. Now, why did you decide to go with the route that you went down?
Well, actually, I was one of the few that was a good fit for both. I remember talking to my instructors, and they were like, you're great for IT and you're great for PM. I had the soft skills for PM, and I had the technical skills for IT. And I remember when they asked me, because they do ask you which side I wanted to go on, I was like, I was unsure because they were both great options. And so I remember at the time, Jane was my program manager, and I told her, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to pick. You guys decide. And so they did. They picked PM. But originally, when I had you fill out an application, you do this essay thing that you have to say like, why do you want to go into this track? I did say the PM track, and I remember them telling me, like I had to Google what it was because I had no idea. And so I ended up Googling, and like based off of that. But once I was in the 5-month process of what I wanted, I realized that I was really good at doing these soft skills like communication and leadership and being verbal and spoken. And so it just fit. And so when it was announced that I was going to be in the PM track, it was sort of like, oh, that totally makes sense, because I was good with speeches and with public appearances. And so, that was the option that came to me, and I loved that decision.
Amazing. So, at Year Up, I'm curious as to, you know, that first 5 months there, you're learning, this certain set of skills, and then you earn an internship or externship, as Facebook calls it, um, on one of their teams over there. But really quick, actually, before we move into that externship phase of the program, which is part of your journey, I really want to address the audience in terms of, the informational interview structure of where we're at right now, which is, and we're learning about Stephanie's background. We're taking time to ask her questions about what her story is, how she got to where she is today, right? Because when she introduced herself, she mentioned she was in the Europe program, so we're asking questions about that part, and then we'll move on into her journey that gets closer to where she is today, right? So there's definitely a structure to it, and we're in the beginning right now. So 5 months has passed. You earn an internship. You've taken the project management route, right? And Anush was your instructor, and is still
Yes.
instructing the PMs today, till this day. So when you made that transition, what was that? What was your internship or externship experience like at Facebook?
Trying to recall that moment. It truly feels like it was yesterday. But it was very like a mind blown moment. I remember we before we got our externships, because as you said, you earn them and you work hard for that. And we went for a tour of the Facebook facilities. And we went and I remember I was like, this is not like real. How am I going to work here? And it was sort of a moment where like, you're like, oh, it was very like imposter syndrome. And I think that's something that's huge especially going to a company that was so big as Facebook. You're like, there's no way that I belong here. And so it was scary and nerve-wracking, but it was also exciting. I love to learn new things, and I like to take challenges and take them and go with them. So when this opportunity came, I was like thrilled, and I remember because they make this big or mini, party for you, and they introduce they give you your externship, because you've earned it. And I remember when they told me, the first thing I told my coach, I was like, what am I going to do exactly? Just because it didn't have a lot to do with the track that we had chosen. And it was sort of like a moment of like, wait, what am I doing? And so she's like, I remember Senia, my coach at the time, told me, just go with the flow and do, your best, because that's what you've always done. And so I remember going into that and I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And we're going to conquer it. Like, we've conquered everything, and let's push through it. So it was a very like a lot of emotions, a very like wow moment, but also a very like, am I going to fit in? Am I going to succeed in this area?
Right. So one thing that I wanted to point out that you mentioned a minute ago, and it was actually leads into the next question I want to touch on a little bit more, and that is the, experiencing imposter syndrome while in your internship, right? So what was that experience, and how did you maybe overcome those feelings of imposter syndrome while you're in an internship at Facebook?
I think wherever you might go, this symptom will always come up. Because in my case, I was like, I don't have a college degree, or, I haven't done the work that some of these people have. And I'm stepping into this role as someone who got a chance and now she's taking it, And so it was very, I remember you get assigned a desk. Facebook isn't about offices. So everybody's open. Everything is very open. And so I got to say, I sat in front of my manager and another person, which I had no idea who they were at the time. And I felt like awkward. It was very like a out of body moment where you're like, what is going on? And I remember always double checking my work as if like, am I doing things right, or what do I need to improve on? And always asking that question as if I was not enough. And so it was very much a scary moment, I guess, and feeling that like I'm not good enough or I don't really belong here. And I remember my manager at the time told me, Stephanie, you're doing great. Get out of your head and do your work. And so that sort of was very tough love. But I needed to hear it. I needed to realize, like, hey, like I'm doing okay, and this is okay. And I guess leaning on people who you need. And Europe was great about that. They were so supportive in any area of my life. And I have a great support system, which is my family, and I love them to death. And so definitely like holding on to them and holding on to my instructors and saying like hearing their like feedback and understanding that like it's okay to feel that it's okay to feel like you have that you're not in that position because but you totally deserve it because you have worked hard. And then realizing that like you earned that spot and you now have to push through it. And so then I realized, like, why don't I talk to my neighbor? And I did. And I realized, hey, they have almost the same background as me. And then talking to the person, I was like, oh, what? Like, oh, so then realizing that, like, I wasn't alone. Like, I was not the only one who felt like they didn't belong. It was more like, let's talk about it. Let's be together with it. And being open about it really, like, made me realize, like, oh, it's totally okay to feel this way, but don't focus only on that because there's so much more to do.
I love that, and you pretty much walked us through the steps that you take, the steps that you would do to overcome imposter syndrome, right? I think one of the number one things is you're talking to people about it, right? Your manager knew about it, the staff members at Year Up, knew about it, right? The people around you that you're working with started, realizing. And that is one of the huge things that you do in terms of taking a step toward overcoming imposter syndrome is talking about it and communicating about it. You also mentioned, that you kind of checked yourself in terms of your own value that you were bringing, that you earned the opportunity that you're in. And so those are all like really big steps that I think is important for people to know that are watching. If you're ever starting something new, whether it's a new job, you move locations, like you pick up and move like to like a new city, or somewhere unfamiliar. Anytime you do something new for the very first time, there is a sense of like comparing yourself to other people, and you feel like you're not good enough. You're an imposter syndrome, right? So these are things that you can do. Obviously, there are more steps you can take to overcome imposter syndrome, but it is a fleeting type of feeling that goes away over time with experience, right? You continue doing what you're doing, and it goes away with time. And so those are things that people need to realize that are experiencing it. It's not something that's gonna like plague you for the rest of your life, right? It does pop up here and there throughout your
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious. Now we're kind of moving in. So we went from your experience at Year Up, and then we talked a little bit about your internship. And I want to get into kind of like the meat of our conversation, which is your actual job today. So, which is a recruiting coordinator at Facebook now. So, can you tell us or tell me, what is something that would surprise people or surprise me about your day to day?
It's a constant movement and hustling. People, because they think that you work in an office and you sort of sit there in a computer, that's all you pretty much do. And now that we are from home, that is mostly what I do. But when we were at Facebook, at the site, it was mostly about moving from building to building to building to building to building. Which was because I had to meet the candidates, talk to them, greet them, take them to lunch. So it's very interactive and very face to face, which is something that I love. I love meeting new people, but it's very face to face. So now, because we do things to BC, it's very much, doing a lot of calls on computer and getting to meet these people and sort of just talking them through and getting them to relax. And they're very anxious because they're interviewing with Facebook, and you have to like calm them down. So I'm very much of like a relaxer, somebody who's like, it's okay, you got this.
I mean, that must be like a kind of like tables kind of turning kind of thing, or like a switch for you.
Yeah.
Having come from an internship, and maybe feeling nervous yourself, going into your internship, and now you're on the other end, interviewing, scheduling with people, talking to people who are applying to Facebook, and they're the ones who are nervous now, and you're the one who talks them down.
Yeah, that's life. It gives you a little bit of circle, but it definitely is. And people don't, when they like, oh, you probably just schedule, and then like there's a little more to it. But like I actually talk to people 24/7, which you wouldn't expect.
That's that recruiter life, recruiting life. Hashtag recruiting life. If there are any recruiters watching right now, please put hashtag recruiting life in the chat. Oh my God. All right. So what is one thing that you wish somebody would have told you before going into this field, the field of recruiting?
That it's okay to make mistakes. You're not a robot. When I first began, I was doing things 100 times 1,000. It was just a lot. And I constantly, was going faster than I should have been. And so I would miss things, or, things would always slip. And I remember one of over the years, because Facebook is about a fast moving pace, and you're always constantly moving, you're not still. I've had many managers over a span of a year, but that's just Facebook's culture. And I remember one of them told me, one, slow down, and two, don't worry, it's okay to make mistakes. And I think I wish somebody would have told me, like, you're okay. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't send this email, or if you don't. I think it would have been healthier for my stress level. And I think also just realizing that, like, it's easier than you think. When I first began, I thought it was going to be, I would never be able to do what I'm doing today, and that it was impossible. And now that I'm here, I'm like, it was a lot of work that I had to put in, and I, pushed myself to the limit to get here, but I made it. And so knowing that, yes, it was a possibility, it's great.
So one of the things that you mentioned that I want to highlight, you said a minute ago, was that while working at Facebook, you had different managers. And so how many managers are we talking about over the course of time that you've been there so far? How many do you think?
I'm counting right now. I have about 6.
6 managers. Wow. And so, because I wanted to point this out, because there is this feeling also when you change managers, when management changes, potential discomfort. One of the main reasons why people jump ship, leave their jobs, is because managers change. The manager they like change, or they don't get along with managers. So I'm curious, as to what was like your secret to kind of adapting to changing so many managers. What did you do?
It was actually really hard for me. I'm a type of person that, as you know, doesn't like change. I like constant things. I think any human being. But one, you have to realize that big companies like Facebook or even Google, Amazon, it's all about change. Nothing stays constant. And once you have that in mind, you're like, okay, so it's okay if things change. I will stay doing my job, and I will push and give my 100 every single time. And that does not depend on the person that is leading me. I think that is something people don't understand, that like this person is assigned to you to guide you and to help you, and eventually they will move on and they will either succeed or become other people. And but your job is not to necessarily follow them. Your job is to succeed yourself. Um, and I think I remember when it first happened, when I went from having this manager for about, I only had them for like 3 months, and I love her to death. Um, and then it was like she gave me the news. She's like, you know what? I'm no longer going to be manager. You're gonna. This is who you're going to get hand off to.
Mm.
And my first moment was like, oh no, like I didn't want that. That's not what I wanted. And then I got to meet that person, and she was great, and she was amazing. She helped me in so many ways. And my network was growing. And I think people don't realize that, like, when you get a new manager or when you get to move, your network grows. And my job didn't change. Well, my team did, but not necessarily what I was doing. And so I moved to a different position and to a different department and to a different team, a whole different team. And I got to meet new people to network with, my network bubble went from knowing 3 people to now knowing 10. And then I got the news again. Hey, Stephanie, you're doing a great job, but we need you somewhere else. And that's awesome. Like, I think people don't realize that when they tell you, like, hey, now we need you in this other team, it's like, oh, that must mean I'm doing something great because this other team is asking for me,
I love
Uh,
that.
and so then I was, they did like a little, like, what my high points were. Um, and knowing that, wow, like, even one of the directors knew who I was, that was like awesome. Like, this person now knows who I am because I've been moved so many times. And now I recently just did another move. So it's honestly like, and people always ask me, like, does it scare you? And I'm like, no, my network grows, and I think people need to understand that your network will grow and you'll become a more successful person because of that. And now you have all these people behind you saying, yes, she's done a great job. Yes, we love her. Yes, she's doing this awesome. And then also, like, change is growth. When there's a change in your life, it just means that, like, you're going to grow as a human being and you're going to become better. And I'm all about growth and change. So I think it's very important to understand that, and understand that nothing in life is actually permanent. Everything will change. And that's okay. That's life. That's part of humanity. And I think when you have that in mind, and when you say, you know what, yes, um, it's okay to have, these changes and have an open mind, you'll succeed more and you won't stay stuck. Because I always say, like, when you're comfortable, it's not okay. You need to be uncomfortable to grow, because if you're comfortable, you'll stay in that same position forever. But if you're uncomfortable, you're going to move and become better. So change brings that uncomfortableness in our body, and we become more, and we grow.
I really love that. That response to changing managers, is so important. You're right. There is change, and the way that you look at that change, impacts performance, especially on your day-to-day job. And so, I mean, if you agree that having an open mind when you have a change of managers, or a slight shift in your responsibilities, please put hashtag growth mindset in the chat, because huge, huge, huge. Just even at Europe, we're very big on having a growth mindset, and that just means being open-minded and learn and willing to grow. Right? They say that when you don't know something, someone with a growth mindset is that person who adds into the end of that sentence, well, I don't know that, or I don't understand that yet, because
Yeah.
they're going to learn it.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that response. And for everyone who's watching right now, I want to pause really quick on the actual informational interview and kind of like pan toward the audience and address you in terms of where we're at in this informational interview. And we are kind of in the middle of talking about Stephanie's recruiting coordinating experience. We just talked about that she's gone through 6 different managers during her time at Facebook, which is a ton, right? I think I've only gone through like two, over the course of like 2 or 3 years, So that's a lot, and your ability to kind of adapt to that is amazing. So everyone who is watching, this is that time when you are in your informational interview and you are listening. You're taking key parts of what you're hearing in those informational interviews and you're highlighting them and asking, one question, maybe deeper and kind of pushing on a certain thing that you want to learn more about. So, for example, I caught that as Stephanie, talked about, she had a bunch of management changes, and so I wanted to learn more about her experience with that. Right. So as a job seeker or someone who's looking to switch careers, if you hear something that interests you, talk more about that and ask a question or two more about that specific piece of what they're explaining to you. Okay. So let's pan the camera back, and get back into the informational interview itself. So next question for you, one of my favorites is, what do you enjoy most about the work that you do as a recruiting coordinator?
It's funny because I think if you would have asked me this maybe 2 years ago, I would have said not this, and now I say this. I love being able to interact with human beings. It's great. You get to see these people who are coming in and applying to Facebook, and then they get in, and then you're like, yeah, you got in, and you get to cheer with them and celebrate. And those are the exciting moments that I love. I'm also a very organized human being. I mean, now I'm an organized human being, but I love having things needed out and written and stuff. And so this job allows me to do that, where I can have things set out and have control over them, more or less, because we always have these things called like fires, which is like a big term in Facebook, which is where things don't always go as planned and you have to think on their feet. But that's where my creative mind comes in, and you're like, oh, this is what we're going to do instead. So just having those moments.
You put out fires.
Yeah. We have this, we have these posters that are like firemen's, but they're the coordinators and the recruiters putting out the fires instead of firemen, which is pretty cool.
So let's pretend, that I'm a job seeker and I'm interested in the recruiting field. One of the things maybe I'd be interested in asking you in an informational interview would be, so on your day-to-day, how many candidates do you think that you handle on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, especially at a place like Facebook, which is very large?
On a day-to-day, like 10 to 15. Depends, because we have something called the screening process, which is when you basically just have an interview with one of our engineers, and then that's one. And then there's a loop cycle, which is basically when you have 4 interviewers and you have a greet, which I do those, which is when I go on and I talk just like we're doing right now. And I say like, hey, how are you? Welcome to Facebook Virtually. What can I do for you? Or like, how can I help you? Or answer any questions, I just turn on my chord voice. So basically, you do those things where you, so on when I have, basically every day I have 2 calendars, and one says all the interviews I have to do. And so those are up to 10 to 15, and I have to manage each one, which means I have to make sure that everything's running smoothly and the candidates are having a great experience. And Facebook is all about candidate experience. We love to provide the best possible way for candidates. We love them to have a good time, and that is my job, that they have everything they need in their hands. And so I have to manage that. But greets, I do about 3 to 4 a day, which means usually in the mornings I go back to back to back to back. And so I welcome them like I just did, and I go through each one. And then they have sometimes lunch, and sometimes they want me to join, and I join them to their lunch, and sometimes they don't. And then at the end of the day, I walk them out. And I have those experiences. And so in total, it can be up to like 10 people that I see on a day, and on a week it can be up to maybe 20 people, or it just depends on the week that I have.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, I'm curious about so let's say again, I'm pretending, like hypothetically, I'm a job seeker. This is my informational interview. I want to learn more about this field that you're in. How would you describe somebody who would excel in this type of career? What skills do you think are most important for someone interested in a job like yours? So I'm asking this question as a job seeker because I want to know, like, do I have what it takes? Do I have these skills? Can I, like, when I compare myself to what you're about to say, is this going to, be a position that continues to be interesting to me? So that's the question. What do you think?
Definitely, I always say this, and communication, communication, communication. I think that's super important in this job, especially detailed communication. I work with about 10 recruiters, so I'm a basically, you can say I support recruiters and sourcers. And those are the people, if you're not aware, those are the people that go out and find these people and then bring them to me, and I schedule them and give them interviews, and do all these things for them. So I think communication is very important, just because I deal with 10 people, these other 10 people, and there's a partnership between us. And so I always have to tell them, like, this is what's going on. These are the things, and this is what we need. And if that communication doesn't happen, things can go really haywire. And it's actually happened, because I'm not perfect, where we have situations where I forget to tell them, like, hey, I don't have any availability for this candidate, and this candidate is on limbo. Basically, they have no idea what's going on. And so that falls on me, but it also falls on the recruiter. And so we basically have to, like, come back and say, okay, now what do we need with this candidate? And so I basically say, okay, and I go on my list and I tell them everything that we need. So it's very important, not just to be communicative, but to be detailed in your communication, because sometimes we say, oh, this is what's going on, and we forget, and we go into our own, like, space. We forget to be super detailed and just very, very, like, specific. And something that I'm always afraid of is to, we have a workplace. We use a lot workplace at Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're always pinging. And so sometimes I feel like I'm overpaying people. But something that my manager said actually was, like, it's okay to overpaying, because it's rather you say more than say less. So it's very important. Also, you have to be okay with talking to people. It's part of the job. Yes, it can be super intimidating and scary, but you get the flow of it and become a lot easier. And just knowing how to multitask. I know that's something usually people don't talk about, but multitasking is super important. Right now, I have about 15 tabs open on my desktop. And so all these tabs are super important to me, and I have to know what each one goes. And so just being well organized, super communicative, and being able to multitask will get you a higher opportunity in this role.
So anyone who is doing informational interview and you hear things like this, that, oh, these are the skills and this is what, a person that would be interested in this type of role, that's what they would be like. These are the skills that they would have. As you continue to pursue, different career paths, keep that in mind when you hear that, when the person answers that question. Oh, you're supposed to have these types of skills, this, and this. Does that sound like you, right? Is this career path worth pursuing? This is definitely, part of, like, the informational interview. You are interviewing them and trying to figure out more about this field and if you fit into this field. So I appreciate you and your response to that question. Now we're coming up on the end of our questions here. So, in an informational interview, it's time to start wrapping up, right? And actually, this next question is probably my most favorite question to ask in an informational interview. And I want to say the most important part of an informational interview. So if you've made it this far, you've made it pretty much the best question that you can ask, because it does so much for you, like in the informational interview and after. Okay, so here is the next question, and it is, do you have any recommendations for other people I should talk to or other resources I should explore?
Yes. I can connect you with some of my network so that you have that opportunity. And I can list you a name of people that are so happy to talk to you guys and have these conversations and connect, even with myself, so that we can keep in touch and I can continue giving these people to you.
Exactly. So, and I know that like in the, in an actual informational interview, what
I
you
would
would
have,
hear is just like, oh, Stephanie's gonna, tell me the actual names, right? Like, oh yeah,
yeah,
you can connect with
totally.
Mark Zuckerberg. You can connect with this person and this person,
Yeah.
and then and then you would be like, my response would be, oh, that's amazing. Do you think you do like an email intro, or maybe Stephanie would be, already on top of that? Like, yeah, let me like, I'll shoot you an email, connect you via email, and you can go from there, and I'll introduce you to a few people. Right?
Totally.
One of the best questions to ask in an informational interview, hands down. I do it all the time, and one of the coolest things about that question is you can really navigate through a company that way, and you're not only building your network, building your connections, and learning from more people with different experiences, but you start growing who you know inside these top companies, right? So I've done something similar with a company called Workday, and I actually have two mentors now at Workday for this very reason, because I asked this very question, right? And they were willing to connect me with like 4 different people who they thought I might have interest in. So ask this question. Don't forget to ask this question. It's so important. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through that. It's definitely like how that might sound.
Yeah, because you never like, and we also had to do these information interviews, and we had to ask these questions, and something that you guys might know is that maybe they're hiring on Facebook, and maybe I know how to reference you, and so all you have to do is just give me your name, so you truly never know like the person you're talking to and like what they can lead you to.
Right, exactly. And here is the second to the last question. And this is a funny one, because it's literally like asking if I'm on the right track in terms of, am I asking all the right questions that I'm supposed to be asking? Like kind of like, did I miss anything? Right? Are there any questions I'm not asking that I should be asking? Right. So Stephanie, do you think I missed anything? That maybe there was something that you wanted to share that I didn't ask.
I think, like I said before, definitely asking if maybe they're hiring at my company. You never know. Right now we actually are. Just FYI. So you really never know. Just ask. But I think Manny does do a good job of like telling you what specifically you have to go through. And these are super important because these people will eventually take you to other places, and that's what you want. You want to grow in your career, and you want to be better than what you were.
Exactly. That's such a great point. With is your company hiring? And then if you ask that question, then sometimes with a little bit of luck, the person you're actually talking to is hiring on their team, and
Yeah.
with a lot of luck for exactly what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen every day, but if you don't ask, you don't know. If you don't ask questions like this, then the speaker will not know what they should be, what you should be asking them.
And big companies like Facebook, they go by referrals a lot. So if you know someone that works there already, you've got a higher chance of getting in that job than someone who doesn't work there. So definitely always ask that question.
Right on. Now, last, and here's the final question for you to wrap up the informational interview. Would it be all right for us to stay in touch?
Of course.
What's the best way for us to keep in touch, you think?
LinkedIn, my email, and my work phone number.
Which one are you more active on?
Well, actually, I'm always on my email, so you can go ahead and reach me out through there.
Hmm.
But LinkedIn is always a good option. I have my phone alerting me whenever somebody wants to connect with me, and I love blurbs. I think something that me and Manny always talk about is that if you want to connect with me, go ahead and send me a little bubble. I usually read them and I reply, and I enjoy having that conversation. And so just having that LinkedIn account. And I also have a work phone. So if you really want to connect with me and you really want to talk to me, go ahead and reach me out through there.
That question is also very important. It seems like it's not, because it's such a simple question. Can we keep in touch? But by saying that, you are putting yourself in a position where you're telling them that you will be keeping in touch. And that is so key to maintain these relationships with the people that you meet, these working professionals in fields, at companies, large companies like Facebook especially, that you want to keep in touch with. Like if you ever want to work for a company like Google, Facebook, these FANG companies, then it's about maintaining those relationships. Whether it's sending an email update, you may not want to do like another informational interview, but you can send an update like, hey, this is what's going on with me right now, the things that I'm working on, and how I'm improving, and just updating them. Something as simple as that. So keep in touch with the people that you do informational interviews with, and maintain your network. It's so important to maintain it, because if you don't, then obviously people forget you, and you may reach out later down the line. They don't know who you are.
And like I said, especially when like companies are like, Facebook always tells us like, we need referrals, we need people who are willing to work. And so when I go to my LinkedIn account, I see people who I actually talk to. Those are probably the first people that I'm going to refer, and not the people that I have never heard of.
Exactly, exactly. So that is, the questions that, for me, that I would ask in an informational interview, that, it's pretty standard, taking you from like the beginning to the end. What do you do? What were you doing prior to this? How did you get to where you're at today? What is your day to day like? What's your favorite thing about what you do now? You know, what are like some of the common skills for someone in this type of job? How would you describe that person? And can you connect me with other people? Can we stay in touch? These are all important questions to ask during an informational interview. Obviously, you adjust to who you're talking to, what industry you're in. There are a lot of different questions you can ask. So one thing you need to know though is you got to take it with a grain of salt. If the person that you schedule with, misses the meeting for whatever reason, or doesn't communicate back with you right away when you're trying to get an informational interview with them. Sometimes it really takes following up. And these informational interviews, they can go 30 minutes, they can go an hour long. I've heard stories of students doing informational interviews and it was less than 30 minutes because the person had to go, and it's really about just communicating with them and maybe setting up like another time to continue on. So make sure that, you are not taking that the wrong way, that this person can't speak with you when you need it. So just patience is key when it comes to like the scheduling and everything, and how the flow of your informational interview goes. So I hope that that's helpful for everyone. With the final about 10 minutes or so here, I do want to open up the floor to Q&A. So if you have questions about informational interviews, about what Stephanie does, about Career Doctor, please put it in the chat, and we will do our best to answer those questions with the time that we have left here. So if you're going to ask a question, try to put it in the format that you see on the screen here, so that it's easy for us to identify that is your question. So appreciate all of you. Let us know, what you're curious about in terms of informational interviews, or how we can help you with that. Stephanie, I appreciate you so much for coming in, and taking, your lunch pretty much
No
to
worries.
little old me, Manny, the career doctor here,
No.
about your experience. How
Yeah,
was it?
it was actually great. As you know that I love to do these things, and I think some people just need to know that it's not that hard. Push yourself to do it. You got this, and you'll be successful in life. You just have to push yourself.
You know what's interesting is, so Stephanie, at one point you were on, the other end doing an informational interview for the very first time. So
Yeah.
prior to you're up, did you know what an informational interview was?
Nope. I had no idea. I think I never did it, and the jobs that I used to get were not like well, in my mind, I thought I did need an informational interview. And so it never really occurred. But, then I got an instructor like Manny, and he told me what an informational interview was. And then I was like, oh, this is what I have to do. And so it's actually super, like, people don't think it's like helpful, but it's actually super helpful. Maybe that person can't get you a job, but maybe the person that they know that they know that they know that they know. And so it's just a cycle, and it's great.
Exactly. So, whether you're doing an informational interview for the first time or you're seasoned in doing it, hopefully, some of the questions that we ask and the structure of this was helpful for you. So I highly encourage you to continue doing these types of interviews with people. I always like to say hashtag stay networking, always network because, and people, I heard this a long time ago, but your network is your net worth, right? So
Yes. Networking is the super important.
yeah, yesterday actually, someone was telling us it's not. It was like Larry, I forget his name. He's like his guest speaker at Europe, and
Oh,
he he said it's not about what you know. It's
it's about who
about,
you know.
and he paused, and someone came off mute and said it's about who you know, and he was like wrong. That's actually wrong. Like based on this book that he had read, and he was talking to us about. And it's about not necessarily who you know. It's about your relationship, like the underlying relationship behind who you know exactly. There's more to it, and I forget exactly what he said. There was so much information, but you may have heard that it's not about what you know. It's about who you know. There's so much more to that. And it's about maintaining those relationships with people because you might know people, but if you don't have a good relationship with them, you're not maintaining it, then you know it's not going to be as useful and support in terms of having a supportive network.
And if you build that relationship with people, they always. I mean, I love when like an alum, like a someone from Europe or even someone that just trying to find a job comes up to me on LinkedIn and like goes like, "Hey, this is what I've been up to," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you!" Like it makes me feel like, oh, I'm being part of this person's life. And I know a lot of people are like that, where they like enjoy reading, and so you become more than just someone that I know. It's now someone that I actually know. And so just building those bonds, because again, you never know if that person, oh, like, I'll go into my, and it's happened before where I have to refer somebody, and so I'll go into my LinkedIn and I'll look at the top 3 people and look at their resumes, and I'm like, oh, they actually fit. All right, here, let me refer you. And so just having those connections with people, it's like super important.
Exactly. I'm just really quick, reminding anyone who is watching that if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. We're here for a few more minutes to answer questions. So if you are curious about anything related to networking, informational interviews, life at Facebook, career doctor, please let us know in the chat. Let us know if you have any questions. All right. So we'll give like a few more minutes to see if anything comes through in terms of questions here. How's your work workload today? That's what I meant to say.
It's a little heavy. Well,
I'm keeping you from working.
and I'm not working. No. I mean, I always get break, and so it's nice. And it's always nice to talk to Manny. But no, yeah. So it during December and November and even January, the beginning of January, it's slow. So I don't really schedule that much. And then once February hits or the ends of January, it's like whoop. And so it's a big scheduling junk. So I'm always going. But again, you get used to it. Facebook is all about moving fast, and our motto used to be moving fast and breaking things. But now it's I actually don't know. It's like moving fast.
So they don't let you break things anymore?
No, now I think it's now like move fast and fix things. I think they've switched. So now it's like you still have to move
That
fast, but you
makes
have
sense.
to like they've it's Facebook. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, because otherwise you just leave a trail of destruction wherever you went. You're moving fast and breaking things. What about the fixing part?
Yeah, well, because I think Mark Zuckerberg was like, it's easier to break something and then fix it than having something that you did and doesn't have success. So he's all about like fixing and making things grow and improve and things like that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, that is, the time that we have with Stephanie Guerra. Appreciate you so much again. Please, please, please follow Stephanie and connect with her on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Let me remove this banner here so you can see how to spell her name. So look her up, connect with her on LinkedIn, network. If you want to chat with her more about her experience at Year Up, her experience at her internship, or experience currently in her job today, reach out to her. I did the same thing. That's how I got this informational interview with her. I was like, "Hey, Stephanie, you want to chat about your experience? Let's do it live, though." So.
Oh no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I don't think she'll want to do it again live, but for sure, connect with her on LinkedIn. Continue growing your network. Connect with the people that you're interested in, especially at companies that you're interested in. Find those people, connect with them, and let them know that you're interested in doing an informational interview. Obviously, there's more that goes into it in terms of writing that out. Curious about that? Connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will help you, draft something out if you're at that point. But appreciate all of you. So I'm going to put Stephanie into the backstage. Stephanie, I'll join you backstage in just a minute here. So give me 1 second. Everyone else, let me just do that really quick. Thank you again, Stephanie, for joining us.
Bye.
See you soon. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us today for our February Career Clinic how-to informational interview. So if this was helpful, if even 1% helpful, repost this, share it on your LinkedIn, share it wherever you're watching it if it was helpful, so that others can get an idea of what this is, how they can do it, and hopefully that will be helpful for them as well. So if you're not already following me on social media, you're going to see a page here which was up earlier with how to connect with me on social media. Obviously, by my name right here, Clubhouse, career_doctor. Look me up. The one with the red background, look like a doctor. Connect with me on Clubhouse. Would love to see you there. I think I have one Clubhouse invite left, so reach out to me if you're looking to join. It is iOS only, so quick plug for Clubhouse. Every Tuesday, I do have a career tea house room that I host, where we talk about our humble beginnings and how we started, like our first ever job we ever had. So it's really cool to see people's stories and really inspiring to see where people started, humble beginnings, #humble beginnings. So without further ado, I'm going to put that screen up. So if you want to follow us on social media, you'll know how to do it. I look forward to our next career clinic next month, where we will be talking with a university recruiter. So anyone who's out there who is a student, going to be graduating soon, please join us next month for that career clinic. More details to come. Follow me on social media for that notification when I explain more about who I'm going to be interviewing and what exactly we're going to be talking about in terms of university recruiting. Okay, so thank you all so much. And I'm going to put that screen up so you know where to follow. Best way to do is probably take a snapshot, take a screen or like a picture of it, so you don't have to write it down.